Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission today is, well, it's a heavy one, but it's absolutely essential.
It really is.
We're taking a look at a stack of source material that explores the bedrock of social life in India. I mean, it's deep, complex divisions. And we're going to trace exactly how those structures, translate into the engine of its democracy. We're looking at gender, religion, and caste.
And how their political expression can be surprisingly sometimes desirable, but yeah, always fraught with danger.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's really the core idea of this whole dive, isn't it? It's a fantastic insight from the material.
Yeah, that social diversity doesn't have to be a threat to democracy.
Exactly. In fact, if you look at the history of social movements, it's the political expression of those differences.
Right.
That's what can drive justice.
When disadvantaged groups actually mobilize to demand change.
Right.
Okay, so let's unpack that tension. We have these three major axes to examine. We'll look at how politics either, helps them move toward progress or just makes things worse.
So let's start with gender.
Sweet.
The sources note it's a universal hierarchical division, but the crucial point they make is that it's often mistaken as natural.
Or biological, yeah. When it's completely rooted in social expectations and stereotypes.
That's absolutely right.
And this misunderstanding, it drives what's called the sexual division of labor.
The sexual division of labor.
Right. And this division is, it's the foundation of the problem. You have women who are seen as primarily responsible for all the internal household work.
So cooking, cleaning, caregiving, all of that.
All of it. While men are, seen as responsible for the external, the income-generating work.
And this is where the system gets, particularly unfair, especially if you look at women in rural areas or in poor urban centers.
Oh, absolutely.
The traditional description makes it sound like a simple split, but the reality is that so many women are performing paid labor.
Like working in fields or fetching water.
Right, collecting fuel, working as domestic helpers.
Right.
And this is in addition to managing all the household duties. Precisely. And the data illustrating this double burden is it's striking.
What does it say?
The Time U survey from 1998-99, which the source material highlights, gives us this really concrete nugget.
Okay.
The average woman works about 7.5 hours daily. The average man, 6.5 hours.
Wow, a full hour more every single day, just on average.
But the breakdown is where the real insight is. Women spend 5 hours on household duties.
5 hours, and men?
A mere 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
So that difference, 4.5 hours, that's unpaid, invisible labor that is socially expected, but it's completely discounted.
Economically, politically, it just doesn't count.
It doesn't.
And if that huge amount of labor is invisible, it makes sense that it translates directly into disadvantage across, every sphere of life.
It reinforces a deeply patriarchal system.
We see it in education, for one. The sources highlight this sharp disparity in literacy. It's 76% for men versus only 54% for women.
And even when girls do better in school, parents often prioritize spending their resources on their son's higher education.
So this structural disadvantage just follows them right into the economy.
It does. I mean, despite the Equal Remuneration Act, which was passed way back in 1976,
right,
women are consistently paid less than men for the exact same work.
And this isn't just about, factory floors. We see this wage gap in really high-profile areas.
Like sports and cinema, yeah.
Yeah.
The system just fundamentally undervalues women's contribution.
And then there's the most tragic expression of this power imbalance, which is the issue of safety and violence.
The reports of harassment, exploitation, violence, they're just commonplace.
And the sources emphasize that urban areas are noted as being particularly unsafe. But what's even more disturbing is that women aren't safe in the private sphere either.
Not even within their own homes. Domestic violence is a huge issue.
So all of this systemic disadvantage, physical, economic, it's the reason we have to look at the political arena.
Exactly. If the social sphere won't recognize the work or the rights of women, then the political sphere has to be used to force that change.
Which brings us to the rise of feminist movements.
Right. And the term can sound complicated, but at its heart, feminism is just the belief in equal rights and opportunities for women and men.
So these movements, they aim for better legal status, political status,
improved education, career opportunities, and this is crucial equality in personal and family life.
That last part feels really important.
Yeah.
Challenging the laws around marriage, inheritance.
It's critical because it means challenging these deeply embedded religious or social laws that often discriminate against women, and they do it across all religious communities.
So the logic for political action is clear. If women's well-being is ignored, it's because they don't control power. So what progress have the sources actually highlighted?
Well, the track record has been, to put it mildly, shockingly low.
Right.
Globally, the world average for women in national parlance is about 24%. India, historically, has been way behind that.
What are the numbers?
Just 14.36% representation of the Lok Sabha in 2019. And in state assemblies, it's often below 5%.
Wow. So we're behind the global average and way behind countries in, say, Scandinavia.
Far behind. The Nordic countries are near 42%. It's jarring to realize India lags behind many developing countries in Africa and Latin America on this specific metric.
So given that, where did the political expression of this division actually succeed? Where are the gains?
We've seen two major areas. The first is a successful, long-standing grassroots model, the Panchayati Raj system.
The local governing bodies.
Exactly. This system mandates the reservation of 1/3 of seats for women in local elections.
And the impact of that.
It resulted in over 10 lakh elected women representatives. I mean, that's a massive amount of political schooling at the village and municipal level.
That's incredible. And the second big success.
That, of course, is the breakthrough at the national level, the Nari Shakti Vandanathiniyam, the Women's Reservation Act.
Finally passed in 2023.
Yes, this reserves 33% of seats in the Lok Sabha, all state legislative assemblies, and the Delhi Assembly.
Which is a monumental legislative victory.
It is. It perfectly illustrates the source's main point. The political expression of a social division is essential for progress.
But there's a catch, isn't there?
There's an important asterisk, yes. The implementation is delayed. It won't happen until after the next census, and a delimitation exercise is completed. So it's a guaranteed right, but...
A right that's waiting to take effect. Victory with delayed gratification. Okay, so that's gender. While that division is universal, the next axis, religion, introduces a conflict that's rooted in the idea of national identity itself.
Yeah, religious differences are widespread globally, and they are always expressed politically. The sources are careful, though, to distinguish between the good and the bad political roles of religion.
Okay, let's start with the positive role. What does that look like?
It's not about using the state to enforce one faith. It's about using the moral and ethical values that are common to all faiths to guide politics.
The sources mention Mahatma Gandhi here.
They do. He's cited as believing that politics should be guided by ethics drawn from religion, not by the dogma of one specific sect.
And we also see positive action when human rights groups advocate for religious minorities.
Right. Absolutely. Or, bring it back to our last topic, when women's movements demand equitable family laws, because the existing ones discriminate against women across different religious traditions.
So it's about regulating religion to ensure equality within communities.
Exactly. But the danger, the real problem, that starts when religion becomes the central, non-negotiable basis of the nation itself.
And that is the definition of communalism.
Right. Communalism is the belief that people who share the same religion have the same fundamental interests, and that those interests are superior to or in direct opposition to the interests of people of other faiths.
It's when one religion is pitted against another, often to seek dominance through state power.
That's the heart of it.
It sounds like a spectrum of danger. So what are the clear political manifestations of this communal ideology that we should look out for?
The sources outline 4 key ways this plays out. First, and maybe the most pervasive, is the everyday stuff. Religious prejudices, stereotypes, that casual belief in your own religion's superiority. It's often so common people don't even recognize it as political.
Okay, and the next step?
Then you have the explicit political objectives. For a majority community, this looks like a quest for majoritarian dominance. For a minority, it can lead to separatist demands.
A separate political unit based on faith.
The third form is mobilization. This is where political parties use religion to create vote banks. They appeal to fear, emotion, sacred symbols.
Using religious leaders to rally support.
And finally, the most horrific manifestation: communal violence, riots, and massacres.
We saw the trauma of this during partition.
And sadly, it's recurred tragically in the post-independence era as well.
So to counter this, the founders of India's constitution consciously chose the model of a secular state.
Yes. And this means, fundamentally, the state has no official religion. That's a sharp distinction from countries like Pakistan or Sri Lanka.
And that choice is backed up by constitutional rights. So for you, the listener, you're guaranteed freedom to profess, practice, and propagate any religion.
And crucially, the Constitution explicitly prohibits discrimination on religious grounds.
Which brings up an interesting constitutional power we touched on earlier.
Ah, yes. The idea that while the state can't endorse a religion, It can intervene in religious matters to ensure equality within those communities.
The most famous example being the constitutional ban on untouchability.
A necessary intervention to ensure justice inside the Hindu community.
Before we move on to caste, there's a really vital factual correction in the source material about demographics. This comes up a lot in political rhetoric.
It does, this fear of rapid demographic shifts.
Mm-hmm.
But the facts, they paint a very stable picture.
So what do they say?
Based on the 2011 census, Hindus are at 79.8% of the population, and Muslims are at 14.2%. The key insight, though, is that these proportions have been relatively stable since 1961.
So the fear-based appeals are not based in fact.
Well, expert estimates show the Muslim proportion is expected to increase by maybe 3 to 4 percentage points over the next 50 years. So very marginally. It's critical to know that fact to counter emotional political appeals.
That's a critical detail.
Yeah.
Okay, let's turn to our final axis of division, caste. While gender is universal and religion is global, the caste system is special to India.
It's unique. It goes beyond simple social inequality. It's a division based on hereditary occupation, historically sanctioned by ritual, maintained by exclusion.
And defined by the dehumanizing practice of untouchability.
Right, and we know that modernization, urbanization, literacy, mobility has worked to erode that rigid hierarchy. But the sources are very clear. Caste has not disappeared.
That's the structural persistence.
It is. Most people still marry within their own caste or subcaste.
Yeah.
More importantly, the economic effects of centuries of this structured advantage and disadvantage are still devastatingly real.
This is where we connect caste directly to the economy.
Yeah, the data shows a stark correlation. The so-called upper castes are, on average, best off. The scheduled castes, the Dalits, who are about 16.6% of the population.
And the scheduled tribes, or atavisas, at 8.6%.
They are consistently the worst off.
Yeah.
The other backward classes, or OBCs, estimated around 41%, fall somewhere in between.
And when you look at poverty rates, it's not a small gap.
It's not. It shows how deep this inequality remains. For example, the poverty rate in rural areas for Hindu upper castes was low, about 11.7%. For scheduled castes, that rate jumps to 35.9%.
Wow.
This isn't a coincidence. Caste continues to regulate access to resources like land and education, which ensures this generational poverty persists.
So, just like with religion, caste plays a dual role in politics. Let's start with the negative role, which is often just called casteism.
Right. Casteism is when parties appeal directly to this narrow caste sentiment, treating specific groups as solid vote banks.
Choosing candidates based purely on the caste makeup of the electorate.
Exactly. And this tendency, while it might be politically expedient, it often distracts from the pressing universal issues that affect everyone.
Like poverty, healthcare, or corruption.
All of those. But the positive side is that the political process itself influences and, in some ways, civilizes caste.
How so?
The introduction of universal adult franchise, one person, one vote, forces political parties to engage with all groups.
Ah, I see.
So caste groups are forced to become politically strategic. They can't just exist as these small, isolated units. They have to bring in neighboring subcastes to become bigger voting blocks.
And they have to enter into coalitions and negotiations with other groups to actually wield power.
Which leads to the ultimate necessary benefit. This political expression gives disadvantaged groups, Dalits and OBCs, a vital platform.
A platform to demand their share of power, dignity, and access to resources that were historically denied to them.
They force their disadvantage onto the national political agenda.
However, we need to stress that caste, while it's essential, is not the only thing that determines an election victory.
No, absolutely not. The sources are clear. You can't win an election on caste alone. No parliamentary constituency has a clear majority of one single caste.
So candidates have to earn confidence from multiple groups.
Plus, voters are dynamic. Lots of voters cross caste lines. And other factors, party loyalty, the economy, the performance of the government, are often decisive.
So it's one arrow in the political quiver, but not the whole arsenal.
A very good way of putting it.
So when we put all three of these complex divisions, gender, religion, and caste together, what's the ultimate synthesis here?
I think this deep dive has really revealed the essential tension at the heart of the world's largest democracy.
The idea that the political expression of social division is a true double-edged sword.
It is. On one side, you have the profound dangers of communalism and casteism, which threaten to divide the nation.
But on the other side, it's the essential engine for equity. It leads directly to reserved political power for women.
And a platform for Dalits and OBCs to gain dignity and resources they would never have achieved otherwise.
So the final takeaway is that political action is necessary to address social disadvantage.
Yes, the disadvantaged benefit immensely when their unequal treatment is not hidden away in the private sphere, but is instead brought into the political domain and forced onto the national agenda.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the learner. We saw that identity-based politics, whether it's focused on caste or religion, can sometimes risk diverting attention from those pressing universal issues like poverty and corruption that affect everyone.
Mm.
So if the ultimate goal of the political expression of social identity is justice, resource allocation, and dignity, how can political systems ensure that the critical and necessary fight for identity and recognition doesn't eclipse the urgent demand for universal economic betterment for all citizens, regardless of their background?
I'll leave you with that to consider.